Today we're checking out Earfun's first clip-on earbud named, you guessed it, the Earfun Clip. Simple, I like it. As usual today I'll be scoring and ranking them against 14 clip-on earbuds in 10 categories. And as usual, Earfun is bringing you some seriously impressive value, although the buds do fall short in one category. So let's get into category 1 comfort, and I'm scoring them a 9 out of 10. Solid stuff overall here. The bud is comprised of smooth and some glossy hard plastics. The ergonomics are solid. It's a light feel on the ear for me. The wire isn't too loose or too tight. You can tighten or loosen it slightly. It's not really designed to work like that, but you can if you like. But what I really like here is that the driver is angled down slightly. Earfun's actually the first brand to do this, and it's a smart design as I'm always angling the driver down closer towards my ear canal, so there's now no need to angle the bud down manually. And these buds do work very well when side sleeping, as the wire doesn't stick out too far from the ear, so there's not too much pressure if you're lying on a pillow. All right, category 2 is the security of the fit, and I'm scoring the clip a 9 out of 10. As I said, the wire tightness is pretty spot on. You can make it slightly tighter if you like, so no matter how you use the buds, they're gonna lock in place really well. Keep in mind there's no silicone on the buds, so if you get quite sweaty, the buds might budge around ever so slightly, like if you're running, but in most cases you should be fine. Now, category 3 is the IP rating. I'm scoring the clip a 9.5 out of 10 as you get an IP55 dust and water resistant rating. The highest scored buds from Baseus are waterproof, but IP55 is solid. All right, category 4 is case and battery life. I'm scoring the clip here a 9.5 out of 10. As you get a really solid 10 hours on the earbuds and 40 hours in total with the case. That will drop down to 5.5 hours on the buds, 22 hours in total if you use LDAC, but at least Earfun advertises this. There is, however, no advertised fast charging. You also don't get wireless charging, which at this price is fine. But the case is compact and quite thin. Here it is compared to one of the thinnest cases, the Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro. So more compact and only slightly thicker. All right, now category 5 is controls. Solid stuff as usual from Earfun. They get a 9.5 out of 10. So you get a nice, simple and reliable button control with a single, double, triple tap and long hold. You can customize each individual function on the left or right earbud. The triple press and long hold give you some extra options like a game mode, a quick redial and quick access to EQ presets. The only thing holding them back from being a 10 out of 10 is a lack of wearing detection, although wearing detection is pretty rare for any open earbud. Just keep in mind when you're on a phone call, there's no mute mic option, but you are able to adjust your volume using the earbuds. All right, category 6 is connectivity, and I'm scoring the clip a 9.5 out of 10. You really get everything you need here: Bluetooth 6.0, SBC, AAC, and LDAC high res. Just keep in mind you can't use multipoint with LDAC activated. If you're using either earbud with the other in the case, that bud is going to work in mono mode, so you hear the left and right audio channel out of that one bud. You get multi-point connection here, so you can have 2 devices connected to the buds at the same time. You just need to pause playback on one device before playing it on the other device for that audio to kick in. And there's also a low latency gaming mode. You can turn on in the app or set it to your controls. And this massively improves the latency when gaming. So casual gaming, you're completely fine. Even quick reaction games like shooters, the latency is also quite suitable. All right, now category 7 is call quality, and I run through 3 tests here: a quiet room, simulation crowd noise, and a simulation windy city with construction noise. Now here's all the scoring for the buds. The Earfun Clip get a 7.5, but they actually perform the best in the windy city test, on par with the highest scored Huawei Free Clip. So here are some samples compared to the Free Clip and a similarly priced, also high scored bud, Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro. All right, here's the call quality of the Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro in a quiet room. All right, here is the call quality of the Earfun Clip in a quiet room. All right, here's the call quality of the Huawei Free Clip in a quiet room. All right, now we're going to see how the microphones block out some simulation crowd noise. All right, here's Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro with some simulation crowd noise. All right, here is the Earfun Clip with some simulation crowd noise. All right, here is the Huawei Free Clip with some simulation crowd noise. All right, now I have some city noise, some construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here is the Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro with some city noise, construction noise, and simulation wind. All right, here is the Earfun Clip with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here is the Huawei Free Clip with some city noise, construction noise, and simulation wind. All right, now category 8 is app customization and extra features. Scoring the clip an 8.5 out of 10. The Earfun app just works really well. It's a great user interface, and you get some solid customization. From the top, you get earbud and case battery, your low latency game mode toggle, and some audio EQ preset toggles I'll cover later. You get a solid 10-band EQ, plenty of EQ presets. You also get a hearing test to create a personalized EQ. In my testing, it didn't really work too well. There's the control customization I ran through before, your multi-point connection and connected devices, voice prompt settings. There's also some light sound customization, so you can limit the max decibels as well as adjust the left and right audio balance. Wrapping it up, you get some auto power off features and a Find My earbuds that'll emit a beat from the buds. All right, now the last two rounds here are both for sound quality. First is how the buds sound below 60% volume and how they sound above 60% volume. But first we'll start with my max volume test. I just measured all the earbuds without a seal, just against my sound meter. So not the most accurate, but it works well enough. And the clip measured 114 decibels. Basically, you get plenty of volume here to play with. Even if you're in a noisy environment, you can still hear music or your podcast or whatever nice and easily. Next is my sound leakage rank. So all the buds that have a score of 1 leak the least amount of sound. So the clip is up there with the best. Keep in mind, this is an open earbud. When you're venturing 60% volume and above, if you're in a quiet environment, someone near you will hear some sound being leaked. All right, now onto the sound quality itself. We'll start here with how the buds sound below 60% volume. And I'm scoring the clip an 8.5 out of 10. First, this is my go-to EQ, a subtle bass boost, upper mid, and treble boost. I found that the surge bass EQ preset just boosts the bass too much and I lost a lot of detail. There's also a privacy mode, which basically just reduces the max volume. And there's a theater mode, which is basically spatial audio without head tracking. It actually does open the soundstage quite a bit, while at the same time not adding too much reverb or strange effects. So in terms of open ear spatial audio, this is some of the best. But I prefer it off with that EQ customization I just mentioned before. And with this, the bass is a real standout for open earbud standards. It's quite full. Earfun definitely uses some DSP here to boost the bass at lower volumes. There is, however, a slight emphasis on mid bass. It's not too bloated or messy, but it's just enough so you get a rich experience here, but it's not the punchiest bass response. You also get a tiny bit of deep sub bass here. Keep in mind, you don't really get much deep sub bass on any open earbud. But overall, I'm impressed. The bass is definitely the standout. And as I always say, we need as much bass as we can get on these open earbuds. Now the mids and the treble here are solid, but they're not really the standout. So vocals still come through quite clear and natural. They're very slightly recessed. You can boost it in the EQ, but you can only adjust the sound, especially with a clip-on earbud so much. And the treble here gives you some nice detail. It's just not that crisp and the upper treble is quite lacking again. When you use that EQ and go past 3 decibels, I found the overall volume just really dropped down way too much. So anything over 3 decibels and you can't really customize the sound too much. So the overall clarity and detail here, it's okay, but definitely not a standout. But I do preference bass quite a bit here because that's really going to be the biggest thing you need with an open earbud because you just don't get that much. All right, now for sound above 60% volume, I'm scoring the clip an 8 out of 10. Because as soon as you start going past around 50% volume, the bass starts to reduce pretty dramatically. To the point where you get to 70%, it's quite lacking, you lose most of it. This does, however, let the mids and trebles stand out a bit more, so the overall clarity, separation, and detail is improved, but this is like at the cost of like you're losing bass. We need as much bass as we can get, and sadly, this is where the clip falls short. But the main difference here at these high volumes is that the bass surge EQ preset actually works in the clip's favor. So now boosting the bass at these high volumes while still retaining decent clarity, and you get a decent bass boost up to about 85% volume. Past that, you'll lose a lot of bass, but this is kind of the case with most clip-on earbuds. So the issue here is that at lower volumes, that bass surge EQ preset just boosts the bass too much. It becomes too bloated. You can't EQ after using that preset. So you just don't get consistent bass. At low volumes, you might have to change your EQ when you're listening at high volumes. It's a bit of a mess in that sense. So compared to the Soundcore C40i and Baseus MC1 Pro, it's really close between all 3 buds. The C40i and MC1 do push out slightly more bass, especially if you want to crank the buds loud, where the Earfun clip bass starts to reduce past 85% volume. Between 50 and 85% volume though, the clip actually pushes out slightly more bass, where the MC1 Pro does have a slightly clearer sound. You also have the similarly priced Moondrop Pill with slightly better sound in the clip, mainly when it comes to mids and treble. With bass, it's pretty close. The Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro also push out noticeably more bass at high volumes, and they do have slightly more crisp treble. The clip does have LDAC, more reliable button controls, and better call quality in windy conditions though. But that wraps up all 10 categories, and if you want to customize the scoring, check out my free spreadsheet linked below. You can compare all the buds. I've got notes, specs, call quality, and you can change the weight of each category and get a new custom ranking for all the buds. But now the final scores are in, and the Earfun Clip finished with 88.5 out of 100. So at their price, they're the highest scored earbud right now. The only issue to keep in mind is that bass surge EQ situation I mentioned before. Basically, to get the best sound out of the earbuds, you need a different EQ at low volumes and high volumes. If that is an issue for you, you do have the Soundpeats Pearl Clip Pro with slightly better sound and more consistent sound. The Baseus MC1 or MC1 Pro are also pretty close to the clip in overall features and sound quality. The clip does sound better at low volumes though. High volumes, it's close. So with the EQ situation there, the clip aren't an easy recommendation for me, especially when you have a lot of similarly priced earbuds with overall pretty similar quality. But for Earfun's first clip-on earbud, I think they've done quite well. For more on clip-on earbuds though, be sure to check out this video right here. Thanks for tuning in, stay picky, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.